Most men were never taught how to feel, only how to function. We learn how to fix and not to feel, to protect, not to process. What if our strength as fathers came from healing, not hiding? Dr. Michael Brasher joins me today to talk about the new masculinity, one built on presence, power, and peace.
Don't move. Keep it locked. You already know. You're listening to the Forfeit Fatherhood Podcast. And we're having conversations with dope dads covering the 4 pillars of fatherhood. We call it the Fit Fatherhood Formula: faith, family, finance, and fitness. That's right. These dads are setting the pace in business and fatherhood. This show isn't only about the outside success. We're getting down to who you are. Gentlemen, it's time to get fit. And now, let's get into the show.
Welcome back to the Forfeit Fatherhood Podcast, a podcast for fathers by fathers, where we talk about the 4 pillars of fatherhood, which are faith, family, finance, and fitness. And today's guest is Dr. Michael Brasher, a transformational speaker, an emotional healing coach, and an expert on healthy masculinity. Michael's helped men and communities heal generational wounds, reclaim power, and lead with emotional intelligence. He's worked with national organizations to engage men as allies in healing and violence prevention. And he's here to drop some truth about what it really means to be a strong man in today's world. We're diving into the inner work behind faith, the emotional patterns inside families, and how presence, not perfection, shapes every part of your leadership as a dad. Let's get into it. And I'm excited to have a guest with me again today. I know sometimes, I like to get in here and just talk, but it's also nice to have a guest, someone I can talk to, someone I can bounce ideas off of or learn something from. And I'm definitely going to be learning something today, and hopefully you guys will too. My guest today is Dr. Michael Brasher. He's a transformational speaker and coach, but most importantly, he's a father. Mike, how you doing today?
I'm doing so good, Rod. I'm so grateful for the chance to get on here and talk to you a little bit.
Yeah, man, I am too. When I kind of started to look up some stuff about you, there's some things that I'm really interested to kind of learn about. Like, we talk a lot about generational things, right? Generational wounds or father
Yeah.
wounds and things that we kind of pass down. And I know that's some work that
Yes.
you do. And I know that masculinity has been a big topic of conversation as of late,
Yeah.
and I don't think it's going away. I think
Right.
there is some redefining or kind of
Yeah.
new understanding of what masculinity
Yeah.
is, and I think, last year we spent the month of March kind of trying to define it, trying to kind of nail down what does masculinity mean, and we really didn't get close to a
Totally.
real answer because
Yeah.
everybody kind of has these different ideas, and it can be there are characteristics that are true kind of no matter who kind of gave their example or their definition, but
Yeah.
it's always kind of in the eye of the beholder, right? And so
Totally.
I kind of want to talk to you a little bit about that and some emotional intelligence and vulnerability and all of the good stuff, right?
Okay.
um but let's start off, let's kind of talk about let's talk about you. How did you kind of get into this? Give it Tell us who Dr. Michael Brasher is. Let's do that.
Right on, Rod. Um, yeah, I'm happy to. And I just want to say first, man, I'm so grateful for the space that you're holding and the space that you're creating for these intentional conversations about fatherhood. I think, yeah, it's so important, and I know that it's a part of, for me, it's a part of mine and your shared mission. Like, the world is so much better when we're creating space to support dads and to think about how do we be purposeful as dads. Um, so really my story, um, it begins when I took a job working at a domestic violence shelter. And I was just kind of messing around in graduate school. I was taking a gap year and I was like, oh, I need just some random job I want to take some time off and before I went back to grad school to do my PhD. Um, and so I started working at a domestic violence shelter, and the short version of it is it just totally changed my life, and it really opened my eyes to the fact that, one, I had grown up in a family that was incredibly impacted by men's violence against women, but I didn't know that. We didn't talk about it. I didn't even think that until I was working with these families. And the other thing that it really opened up for me is that, um, if I didn't take real responsibility for healing work in my own life and come alongside other men that were prioritizing that same work, I was going to repeat a lot of the same harm that I had inherited and had impacted my family. And so it really set me off on my own healing journey as a man.
Yeah, that's interesting. Because when we talk about like domestic violence and those kind of things, we usually it's usually women talking about it, right? The conversation
For
is
sure.
usually around women and being victims of domestic violence. We don't hear a lot of men talking about it. Number one, definitely don't hear about a lot of men working in those environments.
Yeah.
And so I can imagine that that was an eye opening experience for you. That definitely
Yeah.
gave you a different perspective on the relationship, right,
Yep.
between husband and wife or man and woman, and that kind of victim and perpetrator kind of thing. So
Yeah.
so you do that, and then how does that kind of springboard you into to what's next?
Yeah. So I'm working at this domestic violence shelter, and I'm my heart's breaking open. I'm making all these connections, like, oh, I realize this stuff in my family. And uh the women that run the shelter, they came to me and said, "Hey, Michael, we want to start an experimental men's education program." And it's premised on the question of what would it take to get men to take responsibility for ending violence against women. It's exactly what you said, right? Like, we just see this as a women's issue. Men don't engage. And because
Mhm.
men don't engage and men don't say this is something we've got to solve, it continues. And so they asked me to go through this program, and I said yes. And I was in a self righteous place, honestly. I was like, oh, I'm going to go fix these men. Um, and so I started this program. It was a 6 month intensive weekly program for 2 hours a week. Um, and I had all these assumptions about who the men were that did these, that were in this program. And what we did is we came together and we just began to talk about what did we learn growing up about what it means to be a man. What did we witness from our dads? What did we witness from our uncles, the men in our neighborhood? And what kind of messages did we subtly inherit from them about what it means to be a real man, how to
Mhm.
get love from other men, how to get respect from other men. And I think the truth is, in a space where men can have very honest conversations about that stuff, um, we discovered that we had a lot of shared grief and sadness and pain that we had never talked about. And as we began to talk about that, I feel like we got a real vision for a different idea of what it means to be a man, and to live in love and integrity.
Yeah, it sounds like when you because a lot of times we as men, one, society has kind of told us that we don't share our feelings. We aren't allowed to have emotions because it's considered to be emotional, right? And so
Right.
we tuck those away. We don't have those conversations. But it sounds like you kind of created a safe space. And I don't know, that word has been taken, that phrase has been kind of taken all over the place, but
Sure.
created a safe space or an
Yeah.
opportunity or just the room where men can kind of have some emotional honesty, right? And just like
Yeah.
really like this has been my experience. I
Yeah.
haven't shared it with anybody. And honestly, just talking about my experience, oh man, boom, I didn't even realize that that's what I was internalizing at that
Yeah.
point. And so it sounds like we were kind of doing some more of the deeper inner work in those meetings, right?
Yeah, I think that's a really good way to put it. I've come to increasingly understand men's healing work, which is a lot of what I do now, right? Like helping men to step into purpose, to step into a higher vision of who they want to be in their life. But I've come to understand that the very first step of men's work is, honestly, it's oftentimes grief work,
Mm,
right? Because as men, I've gotten this subtle message that, um, pain is something to be ashamed of. It's something to be minimized. It's something to be denied. It's something to be put in the corner. Um, and sometimes there's even value in that, right? Like we can't always be in the pain. Sometimes we do have to set it aside. But the bottom line is for me, in our communities, so many men have unconscious pain,
Mm-hmm.
right? Red hot, searing energy in their body that they've never given attention to from their childhood, from things that happened growing up. And it comes out sideways. And so for me, such a big first step is just to be honest with one another, sitting in a space where we can do it and say like, yeah, man, I'm carrying some stuff that hurts and I want to make it conscious so that I can change that energy so that it doesn't stay stuck. And so for me, that's grief work. You know, it's how do I take the pain that's in my body, make it conscious so it can change?
Yeah. So how do you do that, right? Like if we're talking about, obviously we have there's got to be it's like a 12-step program, right? The first step is acceptance and kind of understanding that we have these issues. But if we're trying to, if we've accepted and we understand that we have it, right? And now we're trying to heal some of those generational wounds or some of that
Yeah.
grief.
Yeah.
What does that actually look like? Like what are we doing or how do we do that?
Yeah. Yeah. Great question. And that is the question. I'm going to give you a real practical answer, but I want to share too. I'm thinking of this quote from Carl Jung. Um, he said, if we don't make the unconscious things in our life conscious, they'll drive our life and we'll call it fate. And so I
Mm,
think when you live in a society that tells men it's not manly to have or show pain, then the odds are we're going to put it over here in the corner, right? And it's not weak or unmanly to have pain, man. It's part of what makes us a human being. It's such a universal experience. And so for me, with men in my life that I do individual work or group work or just in my own process, it's coming into a regular process where we can just tell the truth and shed the light of our consciousness onto the really painful things that we've been through.
mm,
You know, and I don't think that has to be an endless process. I think a lot of men, they resist grief work because they're like, oh, I don't want to open that up because maybe it'll swallow me up. Maybe it'll pull me apart and I'll never come back together. And I think those are normal fears. But once we actually just begin to talk to it with a brother that we trust, with a man in our life that we care about, um, I find that more and more that heat in the background of our body begins to go down,
mhm.
and that energy, which was unconscious pain, it begins to come back to me as a little bit more power, a little bit more choice, a little bit more control. But I think step one is just to really talk about it. And step two is to give myself some space to feel how bad that hurt. And that can sound like almost such a basic instruction that it's almost hard to do.
Mhm.
But like for me, I go through a season of my life where I put 30 minutes on my calendar a week and it's grief time. And when it hits on my calendar, I close my eyes, I put my hand on my chest, and I give myself to feel like, oh man, that really hurts. Oh yeah, I still feel a lot of sadness about it. And giving myself some time to just feel it, plus talking to others about it, I find that what was an iceberg becomes like a much more manageable thing and it becomes conscious instead of unconscious.
Okay. Okay. So now we're talking about, okay, if it's unconscious though, here's my question. If it's
Mm-hmm.
unconscious and I don't know that I have this thing, um, how do I know to work on it? You know what I mean? Like what are the
Yeah,
signs the
yeah,
signs and
yeah,
symptoms that get me into the room to start to
yeah,
work on trying
yeah,
to figure out or uncover or realize that what I thought was
yeah,
a molehill is maybe a mountain. Like how do I
yeah,
get to that point?
yeah. That's honestly, Rod, is such a beautiful question, man. I'm so grateful that that's what you're asking. Um, I think there's a few things that we need to be on the lookout for as men. And again, I think this goes to sometimes we got to step out of the like real stereotype man box, you know? Um, I think one is if there's areas in my life where I'm getting feedback or observing that sometimes my responses seem a bit disproportional to the circumstances,
Mm.
right? Like something small happens, I get really mad, or I have a very low tolerance for regular occurrences that a lot of people just handle as no big deal. They can shrug them off, but I cannot shrug it off.
Mm.
Um, if I have like real sensitivities in my relationship, like, hey, don't do that because it reminds me of this thing that used to happen in my family. It reminds me of this thing that happened with my ex. You know, all of those things are little signs that are telling me, Michael, you've got pain in here. And so that the past is shaping what you're able to do in the present. You know, for me, those are some of the symptoms. And the last thing I'll say that I think can be so powerful for all of us, and I think if we want to be a dad who is a leader in our family and a leader in our community, here's one of the most important capacities I feel like we can develop, and it's inviting feedback and accountability. Like,
Mm.
hey, honey, do you think that I have some old grief work that maybe needs my attention? Do you think I've got some pain of things I've been minimizing? Right. And if I ask the people close to me and I can trust their answers, I
Mm.
think they're gonna shed some light on it for me.
Yeah, I think that's it's gonna be a big hurdle for guys is to openly ask for criticism, right? Because
Yes.
most of us are avoiding that like the plague, right? First of all,
Mm-hmm.
we don't want to have emotional conversation at all. And
Facts.
I think it's because we don't have a leg to stand on because we haven't been taught an emotional intelligence, right?
Truly.
If I ask you a question about sports and I play sports, boom, we can get right into it, right? I
Yes.
ask you a question of, I'm gonna just say some typical guy stuff. I ask you a
Yeah.
question
Yeah.
about cars, and you're like Ford versus Chevy. Boom, let's get into it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? If I ask you
Yes.
some very just man type stuff, right?
Yeah.
I'm ready for that conversation. But when I go, hey, you know, how do you feel I've been reciprocating emotions in
Yeah.
this relationship?
Yeah.
I don't have once she starts talking, I'm like
Oh yeah.
up against the wall at that point, right?
Yeah.
And she's going to say some things that are going to make me uncomfortable, and I know that, right? I know
Yep.
that going into it,
Yep.
and that might even be a reason to do some work, right?
Yep.
Knowing that you have a space in your life that makes you really uncomfortable,
Yeah.
right? Like a real part of you that you don't want to explore because it makes you uncomfortable might be a
Yeah.
reason why you want to do some work in that area, right? Because
Yep.
if we're talking about, you know, the kind of stereotypical man where we're strong and we can't be defeated, we're stoic, that doesn't sound like somebody who has a vulnerable spot. You
That's
know
right.
what I mean?
That's
Or
right.
somebody that has an area that they have to protect because they're
Yeah.
afraid of it.
Yep.
And so that may be your key to do some
Yep.
work. But I do think a lot of us have these areas of our lives that we kind of shy away from,
Yeah.
right? But I think a very important part of what you said in terms of asking for
Yeah.
accountability or asking those questions is it's got to be someone you trust,
Yeah.
and that's something that we also have to face is the people around us that we trust, allowing them or
Yes.
to trusting them to have this vulnerability that like exposing our vulnerability and them not
Yeah.
hurting us with it.
Yeah.
And I think that's the big thing, right? Because when I talk about vulnerability, like I'll post stuff about vulnerability on social
Yeah.
media. We talk about it on the podcast. Guys will usually guys who don't have usually don't have an actual picture. It's like a meme or like an egghead, like they used to be back in the day. They'll say something like, "Well, women will use that to tear you down," or
Yeah.
you know, they say some kind of derogatory comment
Yeah.
about somebody who would have
Yeah.
vulnerability or weakness. And I think that's just a coping mechanism, right? Or some fear
Yeah.
because of the lack of trust for those around you.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. Totally. And I think as men, the way we've been raised, we really are in a double bind because we've been taught if you want to have love and respect, you need to be in control.
Mm.
Don't let yourself get hurt. Don't put yourself in a position where she can hurt you like that, where she can punk you, or she can make you look stupid for opening up that much and trusting that much. You know, we've associated all of that. Again, I associate pain with shame, right? I was taught it's not manly to get hurt. And so here's the issue with that, you can have control or you can have intimacy. Can't usually have both at the same time, right? Like intimacy, the most deeply satisfying and I would say like necessary relational capacity we have as human beings, it is based on having moments and dynamics in my relationship where other people can hurt me.
Mm.
And they're gonna sometimes. And that's actually not like a wild portrayal that shows that they're bad and I should have never trusted. That's just the human condition. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, my wife hurts me sometimes. We move through it. It doesn't mean she's bad or you know what I mean, or I need to have this whole thing to deal with it. And so I think as men, we're living out this script that says never let anybody hurt you, always be in control. You can't really be vulnerable. You can't let a woman in your life give you feedback. And then at the same time, we're experiencing all of these symptoms and consequences that in our relationships, people are living in our house and we have zero intimacy with them.
Mhm.
It's very dissatisfying on some level. But I think for me as a man, I never had older adult men that said the stuff that I'm saying. You know what I mean? So we start to think, well, it's just normal to live in super dissatisfying relationships and to feel incredibly lonely all the time.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely, definitely. And it's something that I got from you. You use intimacy just now, but something I got from you that's can maybe help men
Mm-hmm.
because it's not just the relationship with your wife, but it's also the relationship with your children.
Big time.
The real strength isn't control, it's connection, right?
Big time.
And so we can say intimacy, and
Mm-hmm.
that's one way to use it, but connections are
Yeah.
very similar
Yep.
word, right?
Yep.
When we're talking about having a real deep connection with our wife or our significant
Yeah.
other, having a real deep connection with our children, I think sometimes intimacy might throw people off, right? But that
Sure.
connection is connection, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Connection is only real connection if we allow ourselves to be fully us, right? To be whole in that relationship, right?
Yep.
Um, but I kind of want to take what you just said and kind of see how we can use that, right? So, how could a father, how could a father, because you said like we weren't shown those examples, right? And so now that
Yes.
we're learning this and we're trying to be a better version of ourselves for our next generation, how would we model this newfound emotional intelligence without feeling like we're losing authority or control, right? Because
Yeah.
that's the worry is we're gonna we're gonna be weak or perceived as weak, or we're gonna lose control because we're being vulnerable. How
Yeah.
do we how do we do that? How do we show up like that, or how do we model it?
Yeah. Yeah. Great question. And I'll give like some real practical answers, but I want to say too, a lot of us as men, we want to be leaders. We want to have leadership. And in some ways, like leadership's about influence, right?
Mm.
There is closeness and connection and respect and influence. And I think to have influence and leadership in our families and in our community, we need people's trust,
Mhm.
right? And not the type of trust that says, because I said, don't question authority. That is empty. Nobody, you might have that on the surface, but you're going to be dealing with other kinds of rebellion because that's not real, right? So
Mhm.
where does trust really come from? Trust comes from vulnerability. It comes from modeling vulnerability. It comes from opening up. So for example, like let's say, I mean, and I can give a million real examples from my own life, like maybe at one point I kind of like snap at my kids. You know what? Let me give an actual story. Um, I remember I was eating lunch one day and my son was about 4 and I looked over at my cell phone and I saw I had a text message that a friend of mine had died, like a devastating text message to receive, right? Um, and I'm just like, oh my gosh. I'm like reading this text message, like the room is spinning. I'm like feeling totally devastated. My little boy doesn't know that. He's like starts climbing on me. He's sitting in the chair next to me, starts climbing on me and stuff. And I kind of like yelled at him. I was like, get off me, sit down. It was harsh in a way that like was scary for him. right? He didn't know what was happening. And I sat for a minute and I was like, realized like, okay, like let me do a little bit better as a parent than what I just did. And I turned to him and I said, you know what, son, I'm so sorry. I just found out my friend got hurt and I feel so, so sad right now.
Mm.
I said, I'm so sad that I like can barely breathe. And you know what? So here in this moment, I let my son see I was vulnerable with my son. I was real, I was authentic with him. And then you know what he did? And he put his arms around me and he started genuinely comforting me. Said, I'm sorry, Dad. And I actually let him like give me some love that I needed in that moment. So it became this incredible opportunity for connection, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because I actually opened him up and let him see me. And I think that practice of just taking moments with our kids to say like, you know what, I was feeling really scared yesterday about XYZ. Like that's a small thing that for our kids and for our family, it really can create some big trust in the relationship.
Yeah, yeah. I think I tell people all the time that vulnerability is more of a superpower than you think, right? Because
Yes.
we endear ourselves to heroes not because they're heroes. Like if you see any Marvel movie, any superhero movie, it's all cool at the beginning because they're just a superhero, right? They're doing all the
Yeah.
cool stuff. They can fly, they got laser eyes, they got all the stuff, right? But we don't really like get drawn in until they start to lose, right? Even Rocky,
Yeah.
right? Rocky's the
Yeah.
guy, he's the Italian stallion, he's beating
Yep.
people to sleep. And then, you see him training for the big fight, and it's not until like, round one, he's getting pummeled. Round two, and now you're like, okay, Rocky, like you're leaning in now because his vulnerability is being exposed.
Yeah.
Right. And now you're really like, now you're in the corner with him. Like you're cheering, you're taking your shirt off and spinning around. Like you're cheering for Rocky because they've shown his vulnerability. And that's where you get locked into him. And I think
Yeah.
we want to be the superhero, but we don't want that middle part, right? That middle part of every movie where
Yeah.
the villain is winning. We
Yep.
want the beginning where everyone loves us. We want the end where we save the day, and the middle part, let's
Yes.
forget about. Right?
Totally.
But I think that's where we miss, right? Is because if Superman was Superman all the time, he'd be
Yeah.
unbelievable. Not unbelievably talented, but we would just never feel like we could
Yeah.
be Superman, right?
That's
I
right.
said this to somebody the other day about I said two things. One, Steph Curry ruined basketball. Because if you go to any gym now, any gym,
Yeah.
everybody's chucking up threes. Nobody's getting
Big
in the
time.
paint. Nobody plays the game like that anymore. You could pass
That's
it to
right.
anybody on the court and they're shooting behind the arc, right?
Yeah.
But what he also did though is made basketball believable for a lot of people because he's not a
Mm,
big guy. He doesn't
mm,
jump super
mhm,
high. He's not super. He's
mhm.
super talented, right? We say all these things about him, but if he came and stood next to us as a regular person,
Yeah,
he completely blow us out the water. But when
absolutely.
you look at him around the NBA guys, it's like, oh, he's not. He's slight of. He's got a small frame.
Mhm.
He's not super dazzling. He shoots. He doesn't go in the paint, doesn't have a 47-inch vertical. He's not like an
Yep,
impossible character. So
exactly.
everybody bought into that. And like, oh man, I can go play basketball like Steph Curry can.
Yes.
And because anybody can learn how to shoot. We say this, right? Anybody can learn how to shoot.
Yeah,
but it's because of what we consider to be his weaknesses as opposed to the other guys that make us love the way he plays the game. And now you can't go to a court and not see 50 three-pointers thrown up and a bunch of air balls and a bunch of rebounds, right? Like it's
Yes,
just
yes.
but it's because of what we perceive to be a weakness that made it believable and
Yeah,
realistic for us to get drawn
yeah,
into. And the same thing happens with your wife and your family
yeah,
if you've got the right people around you. And your
yeah,
kids, I mean, those are the right people no matter what. I'm just saying like we can argue or people can argue significant others may not be the right person.
yeah.
But that's another conversation.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah. No, and, like, I think to me, it's going back to sort of what we were talking about at the beginning, like that it's so scary to ask the people in my life for feedback,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because I only wanna be in that the power, the on top, like like what you're saying, that part of the story where I'm just dominant.
Yeah.
And that's a part of life and it feels good, but I think there's this getting into that question of like what is masculinity, so there's this story of these warriors, um and this guy from the United States went to visit this culture, and he asked them, what makes a great warrior, uh and they said the great warrior is the person that when fierceness and hardness is what's called for, they can be fierce and they can be hard.
Mm.
And when softness and tenderness is what's called for, they can be soft and they can be tender. And the great warrior is the person that can do whichever one is called for. And I think
Mhm.
so much in the United States, because of how we've been raised, because of stereotypes about what it means to be a man that have developed historically, sometimes we're only able to stay in the one side, and we're not realizing that's actually a huge liability.
Mhm.
And then we're actually having all kinds of negative consequences and symptoms in our relationship because we're never willing to let down our guard, to be vulnerable, to let the people in our life actually tell us something, be in a position where they could hurt us, right? And
Mhm.
for me, that's really just engaging in real relationship.
Yeah, that made me think of two things that I've heard. One is like an old saying. I don't know where it comes from, so I'm just gonna not. I this it's I'd rather be a warrior in the garden than a gardener in war, right? Having the
Mm,
ability to
hmm
do both, right? To
hmm
if I need to take up arms, I can take up arms. But if I need to
Yeah,
tend, because gardening is like nurturing and
yeah.
caring and like being thoughtful. And then the other one, I from Jason Wilson, and his thing is being a comprehensive man, right?
Mm,
A comprehensive man has the ability to do anything he is called to do when he is called to do it,
yeah.
right? So that means he can be tough and he can be tender, right? He can meet aggression with aggression if necessary, and he can meet
hmm
love with love when necessary. I think we
Absolutely.
get into this situation where masculinity becomes toxic when masculinity is all you have, right? When you're a hammer, everything is a nail,
That's
right?
it.
But sometimes
Yep.
sometimes you need to be a screwdriver. Sometimes you need to be some other tools. And I think a lot of times we lean on just the hard parts of masculinity
Yeah.
because one, they're easier. It's a lot easier to be mad.
For
It's
sure.
a lot easier to be aggressive and to be
Yeah.
scared, like to be that versus being afraid, maybe leaning into love or hurt or pain, right? Those
Yeah.
things are a lot harder to do, and
Yeah.
so we err on the side of easy, but easy doesn't get us where we want to be, right?
No.
If anything worth doing, it's usually hard, right? And that's what we
Yeah.
got to try to embrace the hard a little bit more.
Yeah, 100%. And I'll just say, like something that's important for me in talking about dads. And look, I know that this is a growth edge for all of us. It's a growth edge for me, but like I want to say as a dad, if I can never be present with my own sadness,
Hmm.
my own grief, my own fear, if I never acknowledge to myself or others in my community, like, oh, that was really scary. I felt really scared. I felt hurt. I felt confused. If I can never express those like weaker emotions, my kids are going to implicitly grow up being uncomfortable with that part of life.
Hmm.
And it's going to be that much harder for them to have a conscious relationship with their fear, with their sadness. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's no way to set my kids up for success if I can't be present with my own emotional life. And I think that's a growth edge for a lot of us as men that we have to lean into to do a good job as parents.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you this then. What's the difference, I guess, for us as a father? What's the difference between being emotionally present, right? Because we got to be present with our own emotions,
Yeah.
and like physically present, right? Because I think a lot of us, when we talk about
Yeah.
presence, we talk about just being in the room or being there for the thing,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But there's another side to that coin, right? Where we have to, as you just talked about, be emotionally present for ourselves. But what does emotional presence look like for our family? And I guess it starts with us,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
starting with us, how do we build that out into everyone else?
Yeah, totally. I mean, I do think like the biggest thing is I've got to become more present with my own emotions. And I
Mm,
think, it's going back to that same thing where as boys, we were trained like, hey, what are you crying? I'm going to give you something to cry about. Like, life's tough, get a helmet, be a man, all that kind of stuff that it's just basically saying disconnect from your feelings, disconnect.
right.
And so I know so many men, and this was me for a lot of my life too, who like if I say to I used to do this in a group of men, I used to run this workshop, and I would say, um, like, when's the last time somebody hurt your feelings? And like they would all think about it. Okay, like and sometimes it takes a minute to actually be like, okay, yeah, I did. I got my feelings hurt 2 days ago, whatever. Um, and then I would say, now, when's the last time you told somebody, hey, that hurt my feelings? Right? Like, I don't know, when I was 8, when I was
Right.
6,
Like never. Yeah.
never, never as an adult. And so, you know, I think a lot of times as men, we feel afraid, we feel hurt, we feel sad, but what we give back is anger.
Hmm.
And so we get so used to, like, I don't know when's the last time I was sad. I don't know when I'm hurt. And so part of it is I just have to relearn how to know in the moment, I feel sad, I feel scared, I feel hurt. Right. And if I can do that first, then it becomes realistic that I can be in my family while we're running errands, while we're getting ready for bed, whatever it is, and be like, hey, I'm feeling really sad right now about what just happened.
Hmm.
And it's just, if I can do that as a dad, if I can say, I feel really sad right now about what just happened, man, I'm opening up huge territories of emotional and mental health for my kids by
Hmm.
showing them, like, wow, the person I look up to the most, the person I respect the most, he also deals with sadness and fear, and he's modeling
Yeah.
accountability and all
Right.
these things, right? It just opens up such richness that if I can't even know, I guess I'm feeling sad right now, I'm only going to be able to model for my children this very superficial presentation of what it means to be alive.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right. You're right. As men, we're fixers, right? Like my wife comes to me with a problem, my daughter's coming with a problem. I have a solution, right? This
Yes.
is how we're gonna fix it, right? But tell me if this sounds right, right? If we if we teach them how to fix a problem but not how to feel it, they'll repeat your
Mm,
pain and not your progress, right? Like
mm,
they will be able to fix problems again, just like we taught them how to fix it, but they won't
yeah.
be able to get away from the pain that caused. So,
Yeah.
like you just said, modeling that, showing that, sharing that is huge in allowing them to have the emotional intelligence to feel and then fix, right?
Yeah.
But when you feel it and fix it, it's different because you know the place and the things that you actually. It's like putting a band-aid on a bleeding neck problem, right? Like we know how to stop the bleeding, but we don't know how to stop the symptoms that caused it,
That's
right?
it. Yeah,
So I
that's
think
it.
that's something that's super, super important for us to lean into. And I would say to guys, because a lot of times we're gonna look at it or we're gonna hear this and we're gonna say, well, I'm okay. Right. And it's gonna be about we're making it about us, and that's fine because that's what we just kind of naturally do. But we also all have this understanding is that I would do anything for my children. Right. You hear guys say all the time, I die for my kids, I take a bullet for
Yes.
them, I
Yeah.
jump on a grenade, right? Well,
Yeah.
this is something that you're also doing for them. So how about instead of dying for them in those
Yeah.
particular instances, you live a certain way for them, right?
Yes.
And protect their future in that way. Give them a different
Yeah.
life or more life in that way. And if we can shift our mindset and look at it like that, then you have to let go of the kind of selfishness of I don't want to
Yeah.
deal with the emotions
Yeah.
because it's not for you, right? It is for
Yeah.
you. It's going to help
Yeah.
you, but if
Yeah.
you think about it for them, you might be
Yeah.
more likely to do it.
Yeah. 100%, right? Like, good. I love that example of, like, how many of us we do that. We say, well, I'll die for them. So many of our families, and our own parents, our own loved ones, like, what they wanted was for the adults in their life to heal for them,
Hmm.
right? And there's a saying, right? I cannot heal what I cannot feel, right? If I can feel it, I can heal it. If I cannot feel it, if I'm unwilling to feel it, it's gonna stay untouched, right? And
Yeah.
so I think that's for me what I say when I say that first part of the journey of purpose for so many men is like, okay, I got to do some grief work. I got to recognize like, yeah, there's some pain I've been ignoring. I'm ready to stop ignoring it, but I'm not going to stop ignoring it so that it can ruin my life. I'm going to actually do it so I can release it, so I
Hmm.
can move beyond it, right? And so I think as we as men become willing to feel, and you're providing leadership in that space, Rod. There's so many more men every day who are saying like, you know what, I'm going to do it at a higher level as a dad, maybe than the men before me. I think as we do that, we are really breaking generational cycles, and we're setting our kids up for types of success that maybe has never even existed in our family before.
Yeah, yeah, I think so too. And I think it's something that I've seen you kind of talk about before and this is something that we kind of all want, right? It naturally you can say you don't or don't. Like we all kind of want some power, right? Or some feeling of being in control, right? And I've
Yes.
seen you
Yeah.
talk about kind of reclaiming power, right? And helping men kind of
Mm-hmm.
reclaim their power.
Yes.
What would you say is the difference between power over and power with? And I think that's the issue,
Yeah.
right? When people say, "Oh, I don't really need power," because it's the idea of power over, like I need control over people.
Yeah.
But you talk about something like more of power with. What does that look
Yeah.
like?
Yeah. Right. I mean, we are all powerful, and I have my ways that I'm powerful, and I have my ways that I'm not that powerful. And for me, when I'm really like cooking in my community, in my life, in my family, when I am doing me at my best, um, I am just in vulnerable, interdependent relationships where my strengths can shine, right? But part of that is exactly what you're saying. It's like I'm vulnerable to other people. When other people are right, I'm like, ooh, tell me about that. Oh, you saw me messing up? Like, tell me about that. I'm actually curious. I want to learn. I want to grow. Right. So,
Right,
so I'm not
right.
coming from that place of fear, but I trust myself. I trust my ability to learn, to grow, to get better, to get stronger. I trust that other people are talented. Right. I trust that the people in my life, that we can all get our needs met. Right. That it's not me versus everybody. And when I'm coming from that place of trust in myself and trust in others, when I'm practicing vulnerability in my relationships, all that stuff I'm talking about is deeply trustworthy for others.
Mhm,
Right? The people in my life, they trust my power, they trust my leadership because they know that when I'm wrong, I'm going to want to know about it.
mhm,
That when they're right, I'm going to say, why don't you take the lead? Because I am way out of my element here. And because they trust that I will always share power at the right moments, that I'm not out to be in control just for the sake of being in control, they actually end up giving me a lot more influence. You know what I
mhm.
mean? They're like, well, let's let Michael decide because the moment he shouldn't be in control, he's going to give it to the right person. They trust how I'm going to distribute the power in the room, so they want me to have it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, that's great. That's really good. That's really good. Um, okay, so we talked about a lot. So let me try to get into some more practical kind of. We've heard this, we listened to it, and then we're like, okay, now what do we do, right? Like where do we start? So if healing and wholeness, and I've seen you say this before, healing and wholeness kind of start or require daily practice, right?
Yeah.
Like it's
Yeah.
something I should be doing every day to get better at it or to make steps in the right direction. What does that look like? What do I need to do on a daily basis?
Yeah. Um, I think one thing I say is like every day I need to open up to somebody in my life about anything and practice some vulnerability. I
Hmm.
used to tell somebody, if I don't say one thing that's embarrassing about myself at least once a week, I'm not healthy.
Mm,
And it's a
okay.
funny way to put it, but what it just means is like I need to be that level of like open with my community to where at least once a week I'm sharing something. I'm like, dang, I hate that I'm going to admit this, but I am. Um, that lets me know, that I'm living in integrity, that I'm practicing it. So I think that's a part of it, and one other kind of more practical thing I'll say, I love Hal Elrod's book, The Miracle Morning.
Hmm.
And he proposes this sort of daily routine that I practice where I get up earlier than my family. I meditate, and that helps me build that self connection. I do affirmations. I do visualization. I do some exercise. I do a little bit of reading and writing. And all of that is geared around, man, who am I trying to be? Who do I love to be in the world? Who am I proud to be? And getting so connected to that before the rest of my family even wakes up, that by the time they're up, I'm like, let's go, buddy. I'm here to help all of us be great today. And so for me, that's a practice that is daily that helps me to really lock in on my highest intentions.
Okay. So it's just having a solid daily morning routine is the start, right? We start our day with a win, and we kind of continue to build on that, right? Like you said, connecting with yourself first thing, right?
Yes.
That those dad hours, right, before everybody else gets up. And
Yes.
it's the same thing I say about fitness, right? It's like if we're talking about trying to get in shape, we definitely could leave it up to chance and say sometime today I'm gonna get a workout in,
Yeah.
like maybe after work I'm gonna go get a workout in, or
Yes.
in between. Like we'll just kind of leave it up to chance, whether you're a morning person or not, if you get
Right.
up early, nobody else is. You know the
Right.
schedule for your family. You know nobody's getting up at that time, and those are the hours, or it doesn't have to be hours. It could be the
Mhm.
hour or the 10 minutes or 15
Yeah.
minutes that
Yep.
you can dedicate and commit to being the best version of yourself in that time. And
Yep.
if you do it, you'll see, like, if you create that kind of daily habit, you see how much
Yes.
like it affects everything else throughout the day. First couple of days, I'm going to be honest with you, you're going to be tired, right? But the cool part
Yeah.
about that is you're going to go to sleep earlier, easier, so that you
Yes.
can wake up earlier, easier. Like your body is just going to adjust and you're going to be fine. But that's the time that we have to have in order to build, unless you can create other time throughout the day. And that's, everybody's schedule is their own, right?
Yep.
Okay. All right. So if you could say one thing to a father that's listening who maybe feels like, I don't want to say failing, but feels like he's struggling,
Yeah.
what would that be?
Beautiful. Beautiful question. Um, Here's what I always tell men. Leadership is just when you go first at doing the hard thing. And so, look, we're all failing. We're all messing up. We're all making mistakes. We all have things that we wish were different. Leadership is when I can just share that with the people in my family, with the people in my life. So it's like, well, I lost my temper at my kids yesterday and it's eating me up inside. I hate how I've been parenting. Here's a step, man, that matters is I go to my kids and I just say something like, "Can I tell you something? I hate how I've been parenting lately. I
Mm.
feel really guilty. And I feel scared because I'm trying my best and I'm messing up. And sometimes it just feels scary. And I just wanted to be honest with you and tell you that I love you and that I'm really trying. But I just had to be honest. I haven't felt good about it lately. And that kind of courageous thing to say to the people in my family, that is a powerful type of leadership.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a powerful way to be, right? I feel like that to say something like that is going to take a lot, right? It's like, if you've got a fear of heights, right?
Yeah.
You're climbing the stairs on that one for sure. Like
Yes.
you're getting close to the edge of the cliff on that one.
Yes.
And then you're just jumping off and trusting that your parachute's going to open up,
Yeah.
Um, okay, we've talked a lot about healing, and let's close with this one because I think
Yeah. Yeah.
this might be really good for guys to kind of, this might be the wrap up, right? Like take this and run with it. So let's see how this goes. So we talked a lot about healing, and the importance of it, right? What is it that what does a healed man bring to the world that
Uh,
a hurt man never could?
wow. I think a healed man brings to the world his trust and his confidence that we can make it, that we can be okay, even when things are really hard and scary. If I have healed because I've been willing to be through my own pain and be present with it, and I know I can survive it, then when things are so scary for everybody around us, I don't have to be afraid. I can say, it's okay, y'all. We're going to come through this. You're going to come through this. It's going to be okay. And when I can genuinely feel that way,
Mhm.
man, it provides so much for the people in my life, in my community, But if I haven't healed, then when the pain turns up and things get scary, I'm going to be terrified. And I'm not going to have the ability to give that leadership to the people in my life. So my real answer is leadership. That's the answer.
Mm. It- okay, and it's a different type of leadership, right? Like it is. Maybe it's not a different type of leadership. It's just true leadership. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Like we could
Yes.
because different kind of lead. I mean, like there's a different types of leaders, but leadership is leadership, right? And
Yeah.
a hurt man. I don't know if he possesses all of the characteristics that true leadership requires,
Yeah.
right? Oh
Yeah.
man, you know what? I look. I really appreciate this conversation because even I'm asking questions because I want to know. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
my my deal or my goal is to be the best possible leader in this household that I can be,
Yes.
and talking to you kind of opened me up to some things that I need to do, right? When I am having these situations where maybe I'm having a bigger reaction than I after I pause for a second, I'm like, man,
Mhm.
that was hmm, there's something
Mhm.
there, right?
Mhm.
Like that's
Mhm.
something that I need to lean into. And like when I mentioned, climbing the stairs or that kind of being a scary thought,
Yeah.
I've got to do on my own some more jumping off of cliffs. I've got to
Yeah.
do some more embarrassing, like, oh man, I'm a little embarrassed about this, or like, hey,
Yes.
how? Because I practice, having these conversations with my daughters. We have our daddy daughter dates and we do stuff like that. I'll ask them, how is daddy doing? How am
Yeah.
I doing as a father? I'll ask my wife when we have our kind of quarterly meetings, and we're like, how have I
Yeah.
been? How as a husband? But maybe that's not enough, you know. And I'm always trying to find ways to get better.
Of
So
course.
maybe that's
Yeah.
maybe it should be more frequently, right?
Mm.
Because between times it could be a lot could happen, right?
Yeah. Yeah,
And
yeah.
if without that reflection, I could be just a monster for months. You know what I mean?
Yes, 100.
Uh, so yeah, man, I know I definitely am going to take a lot away. I'm already taking a lot away from it, even just in my brain is spinning right now. And so I know that the guys are going to take a lot away from this. I appreciate the conversation. If guys are wanting to reach out to you, if they want to try
Yeah.
to get more information on you and what you do, or worst
Yeah.
case scenario, they just want to send you a virtual high five and say thanks for
Yeah.
the episode. What's
Totally.
the best way for them to do that?
Yeah, folks can reach me, follow me, find me at Life Unbound Coaching, and that's on all major social media platforms. Life Unbound Coaching. Send me a DM, follow me, and I'm really happy to connect with folks. And I just want to say too, Rod, I'm so grateful, man, for the intention that you're holding in your life to heal, to love, to be an example, to be in purpose, to break generational cycles. Like I feel that how you're holding that, just connecting to you, and just your example, man, of being a dad that wants to do that is so powerful, and genuinely, I'm very grateful for it. I'm grateful for the work that you're doing in the world.
Well, thank you. Thank you. I feel like, I may not be the one to change the world, but if I can help spark the mind, right, is the idea. Or even just like in my local community, right? Like I can do a really good job in my household, and then that's got to spread to my neighborhood, to my city, county, right? And if it's just a ripple
Yes.
effect of a small thing, I think it goes a long way. And so that's my purpose, that's my mission, that's my goal.
Yeah, you're doing it, man. I feel that.
All right, brother. Thank you for joining us. Enjoy the rest of your day, and I'll talk to you soon.
All right. Appreciate you, Rod.
All right, brother.
Okay.
Dr. Mike, thank you, brother, for showing us that masculinity and compassion can live in the same body. Fathers, remember this: your kids don't need a perfect man, they need a present one. So healing yourself is how you change your family tree. If this episode hit home for you, share it with another dad who needs it. And don't forget to follow Dr. Mike at Life Unbound Coaching and visit lifeunboundcoaching.com to learn more about his work. And as always, keep leading with faith, family, finance, and fitness. I'm Rod, and this is Forfeit Fatherhood.